Genetic testing is something that a lot of people are trying out to figure out what their heritage is, to figure out whether or not they might have some genetic concerns to address. But there are members of white supremacist groups who are doing these genetic tests just to figure out how pure they are. Are they completely white, or do they have something else mixed in? Well, these tests are awesome because more often than not, they'll find that some percentage of their genes indicate that they're actually maybe sub-Saharan African or from a different part of the world and not completely European white. So in a new study, sociologists Aryan and Joan Donovan actually looked at years worth of posts by these white supremacists in regard to their genetic testing. And they wanted to see what the reaction would be from white supremacist groups. Would they just flat out reject these individuals now that they found out that they're not completely white? Well, what they found was that about 153 users shared the results of their genetic tests on one of these alt-right, or I should say white supremacist websites. And what they found was the following. Instead of rejecting members, let's go to graphic 3. Instead of rejecting members who get contrary results, the conversations are overwhelmingly focused on helping the person to rethink the validity of the genetic test. And some of these critiques, while emerging from deep-seated racism, are close to scientists' own qualms about commercial genetic ancestry testing. So let me clarify that. Scientists are worried about the methodology, but when it comes to white supremacists, they question the methodology only because it gives them a result that they don't like.
Yeah, so we talked about this on the show yesterday. They're still working on perfecting these ancestry websites and the methodology that they use. And the more people that use it, the better they become, because then they can track more parts of the world, etc. But those qualms with the exact certitude of these tests is different from the white nationalist guys, because to give you a sense of that, they'll do things like, well, all right, listen, it says you're partly Jew, but you should use the mirror test.
Oh my God.
This is a test. This is a thing that they do. Okay, so what's the mirror test? I'd never heard of it, so I wanted to know. It sounds fun. It's not.
Let's go to graphic 4.
Okay, graphic 4. Here we go. It says, if you see a Jew in the mirror looking back at you, that's a problem. If you don't, you're fine.
What?
So these are not people interested in science.
No, there's more. I mean, remember that this is a group of people that usually buy into crazy conspiracy theories, right? Others try to discredit the genetic tests as a Jewish conspiracy.
Yeah, of course they are.
That is trying to confuse true white Americans about their ancestry. By the way, the 153 users who shared their genetic test results were writing on Stormfront. So that is the webpage that the sociologists monitored and got these reactions.
Stormfront is white nationalist, anti-Semitic, the whole spiel.
Well, imagine how threatening that is to your pedigree. It's like if you went and bought a collie and you think it's going to be a beautiful collie and you find out it's actually a reindeer chihuahua and an ocelopso. Oh. This is terrible and embarrassing. If you're a white nationalist, you have the pride. And then you spit in a cup or pee in a tin can or whatever you do, and they find out that you're all of the above.
Yeah.
That's kind of horrifying for you. Then you have to sell to your friends, well, actually, you should have me at the dinner table. I'm just like you, and you're not. It kind of reminds me of the diminishing membership of the Catholic Church. It's starting to get small. So what do? You get a new pope. Instead of saying, well, we hate this and we hate that, it's like we love everyone. Love is the name of the game. And so it kind of works that way now.
Yeah.
We have to include, because think of it, if one of them has these genetic anomalies of 3 to 8%, they all probably do, because everybody did it with everybody's grandmother at one time.
Yeah, so that's a great point, because part of the reason that the religious folks let go of other taboos, like you're not supposed to get divorced, and that was a big deal back in the day. But then everybody got divorced, and they're like, oh, it's hard to hate everybody, so we have to pick a smaller group. And then they went with gays, and they're like, okay, let's hate them. And then they found out everybody has somebody gay in their family, and they're like, oh, we got to pick a new group, right? So now Stormfront is is where hate is centered. It's built on that, and so in this case, they're really in a conundrum. Because if it's a newer member there and they test now, I don't know if it's 8% or 14% sub-Saharan African, which by the way happened to one of their leaders, this guy Craig Cobb, who had actually bothered to do an all-white enclave, or he was trying at least in North Dakota. He goes on a talk show and they do the test on him, and he's 14% African. So, and he's like, oh no, it can't be, right? Or they find out you're 8% Jewish or whatever. If you're a new member, they're like, no, get out of here. Oh, we don't want you around here.
I guess he could argue that he's actually South African. You know,
it is sub-Saharan.
Right. Yeah, right. So it's different.
Yes,
I'm Dutch.
But if they're older members, they're already part of the us. And so, my sense of the conservative mind, now it's not fair to lump conservatives with these clear and avowed racists, but it's just a smaller subgroup of that, is that their conception of us is different. Like for normal conservatives, a lot of them are great to their family, great to their community, great to their church. So it's not that they're bad guys, it's just they have a smaller version of us, right? Whereas progressives have a much larger version of us. Blacks, gays, Asians, Jews, everyone, right? And we want to expand the circle of liberty and freedom. And they have more, and so when the racists, they have a really small definition of us, so that if you're 8% Jew, they're like,
And we all know genetically what happens when you inbreed. I mean, this is actually the problem. If you want to have something so specific, and it's just you and your sister, you're going to have like some three-headed genius coming out of that little equation, and that's kind of what we're dealing with here in many ways.
Yeah, you're going to want. Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to wind up with Joffrey.
Back to Game of Thrones.
And so, just last point on that is that but if you're an older member, even if you're pretty heavily percentage Jew or black or whatever, they're like, but he's already part of us. So that's why they're kind of stuck here. And us is not that big anyway.
So not only are they stuck, they do play all sorts of mental gymnastics in order to accept that person or continue to accept that person into their group. So I'll give you an example. Others were told they could remain part of white nationalist groups in spite of what their ancestry revealed, as long as they didn't mate or only had children with certain ethnic groups. Others used these test results to put forth a twisted notion of diversity, one that allows them to say, no, we're really diverse and we don't need non-white people to have a diverse society. So they're saying that they are just inherently diverse because they have some percentage of their background that isn't white.
Yeah, no, we're okay, we're diverse. That dude's 7% Jew and that one's 3% Arab. We're covered.
And have you noticed how progressives, we make love. These people mate. Like chimpanzees or ocelots or three-toed lemurs. It's really kind of like your iguana out there, which I admire, by the way.
That's so funny. It didn't really like hit me until you put it that way. I never referred to sex as mating.
Yeah, because they're so obsessed with breeding.
Yes.
Right? Like to your point about dogs earlier, it's about keeping them purebred. And what a terrible way to live, by the way. Like, okay, I'm not going to choose based on the content of your character. I'm just going to choose based on whether you're in the right race or religion. And then in terms of finding my mate, who cares if we're compatible or we love each other? The question is an arbitrary one. Do you have the right breeding? Which, by the way, we're likely wrong on, and we'll find out after the ancestry test. Watch the Young Turks commercial-free, download it or stream it, watch it any way you like at tytnetwork.com/join.